Just a quick overview of what Lexi and I are going to do. We're going to give you a little bit of organisation contact. Prov is us. We call ourselves Prov for short, Public Record Office Victoria. A little bit about where we are, what's in the collection, and then online research resources and researching the collection. So to start off with, what are we? So we're established under an Act of Parliament, the Public Records Act 1973, and our objectives are set out in that Act. We do a bunch of things, including issuing standards to the public sector. That's the Victorian public government, the Victorian state government sector. And as part of that, we assist and advise agencies on their record keeping requirements. And we also preserve public records that government departments have created in the past and have transferred to us. And then as part of that, we ensure that those records are accessible to the people of Victoria. So as the State Archival Authority of Victoria, we're responsible for the preservation of state government records that have been appraised as requiring permanent retention. As you can imagine, there's lots and lots of records created that have been created by the state government and previously the colonial government since it was set up back in the 1830s, 40s. Not everything that has ever been written by a public servant or somebody who's working in the Victorian government has made its way to us. It's a very select. It's a sliver of a sliver. If you want to think about it in a sort of a proportion, it's a very tiny amount, but it's what we have is huge. It's more than 100 kilometres of shelving that it occupies. And as I said earlier, we provide access to that collection and as well as providing leadership and services in records management to Victorian public sector. And the way that we determine what is a record that will be retained permanently is there's a bunch of criteria, and what you see on your screen now are the kinds of considerations that go into a selection process, what we call appraisal. So it has to show, the records have to have these attributes, a high standard of these attributes for them to eventually become part of our collection. Where are we? We're our main place of work for both Lexi and I is the Victorian Archives Centre in North Melbourne. And that through that the reading room that we have there, you can access 95% of the physical collection. But there's also obviously smaller proportions of the collection at all of those other locations you can see on the screen now. Ballarat Archives Centre, which is at the Eureka Centre in Ballarat, the Geelong Heritage Centre at the Geelong Library, the Bendigo Regional Archives Centre at the Bendigo Library, and the Robert O'Hara Burke Museum in Beechworth. At the moment, if you want to come and visit us, you do require to do a booking due to the pandemic situation, and if you need to do a booking, that's the URL there. So what's in the collection? As I said earlier, over 100 linear kilometres of records, and the kinds of records they have to be part of the state. It has to be a state government department or school or state court, even local government records. So anything that was produced by the Victorian public sector that's considered permanent comes to us. And so they date generally from about the 1830s onwards, 1836 right through into quite recent times. So through the collection, you can find out quite a lot about our state's history and development, whether it be immigration prior to the that power going to the federal government in the in 1900 at Federation. Land, education, health, prisons, public buildings, all sorts of things related to the state government's business. So as I just mentioned, immigration having become a federal responsibility post 1900, those records, they're all with the National Archives of Australia now. So if you want to do research into immigration, 20th century immigration, that's the way that you'll do it. And with anything else that is a federal government power now, just think of the departments that the federal government has, and they'll give you an idea of what will not be with us. So, in summary, you could say that we have records about people, places, and events, but they are generally Victorian people, places, and events. So the kinds of things that we don't hold, anything prior to 1836, so anything related to the settlement of Victoria prior to that date. Records of colonial functions that were transferred to the Commonwealth as a result of Federation, for example, immigration I just mentioned, and records that were transferred to the Commonwealth after Federation. So there are some records that started off as state records, but they've ended up with the Commonwealth to better serve their business as the ones that currently hold that particular power. And of course, records that are created by the Commonwealth of Australia will not be with us. So anything that's, say, produced by the Department of Immigration now, or the Department whatever of the Commonwealth, the way to access it is through the National Archives of Australia, who also are located in the same reading room. So if you came to do research with us, you could also do your research with them. We're in the same place. But run completely separate catalogues and access regimes. So that's something to bear in mind. Now, obviously, records that have been destroyed are not with us. And a lot of, that vast proportion of the records that I was saying have been produced since the time that Victoria began as a thing. Most of the records are no longer in existence. They just were, you can imagine, you don't keep every receipt that you've ever received, at least most people don't. So that's a sort of, you're only going to keep the most precious stuff, and that's what we do too. We don't have records created by private individuals, businesses and companies, organisations and trade unions, with a caveat. I mean, sometimes if those sorts of, if a private individual or business or a company did have an interaction with the state government, then there may be something from that source in our collection, but it has to be through some sort of process in which they interacted with a part of the Victorian government. Generally, we don't have newspapers, journals, and non-government publications. That's not something that we collect. And we don't have documents provided to individuals by government bodies today. So I guess that's another way of saying that it's an historical archive. There's a bit of a gap between what we have in our collection and the present day. We don't have exact times of birth and marriage. There is you can access information from births, deaths, and marriages. That's a separate pathway to us. Even though we do physically hold the records, they provide the way in to the collection for that particular sorts of records. And we don't have car engine numbers. It's just something that some people come to us for. It's not something that we have. So I'm going to start now on our online research resources. The primary one is the catalogue, which I'll be talking about. And then Lexi will take over and talk about our Explore by Topic pages, and a little bit about our digitised records. So viewing and ordering paper records is something that you can do via our catalogue. We've digitised many of our most popular collections of family history, and the Explore by Topics pages that Lexi is going to talk about are particularly targeted at researchers who are interested in doing family history. Most of the collection is not digitised, especially for the vast bulk of our records that are not usually of interest to family historians. So the process for that is you look it up in the catalogue and you place an order to view it in our reading room. And we have a bunch of video guides on how you can do all of that. That's the URL that you see there at the bottom of this slide. If you do want to order a record, you will need to also create your own account, and there's videos on how to do all that, how to order records, how to create an account, and all that sort of thing. So I'll now switch over to live browsing on my Google Chrome. Can you see that, everyone? Yep. Okay. So that's our homepage, and right on our homepage you can start searching immediately by entering anything into this box, keyword into this box. So that's a very general keyword sort of search. It's very hit and miss, but you can always give it a go if you've got something that you want to search and see how that turns out. There is an advanced search option, which you click on to show, and that can give you a bit more control, especially if you know what a series is or an agency. I'll come to that in a minute. Let's just try a very general search. And we'll try Cranbourne being a presentation to Casey Cardinia and see what turns up. It's going to be a very big search result. As you can see, 3,718 hits. That means in our catalogue there are that many things that have Cranbourne in the title. So that could be anything from the name of a government agency that has Cranbourne's name in it. For instance, Clyde North, the school, has turned up because it was Cranbourne National School, and then Cranbourne Common School, and some of the records that are created have also turned up. And what else? Something from our historic plan collection. So a map, a plan of a particular part of Cranbourne. That's a digitised item, as you can tell by the little thumbnail there. And then there's some more maps, annual reports of the Cranbourne North. You get the idea. So that's a very sort of broad-ranging search. Something to bear in mind is that even though that seems like a lot, 3,718, it really is the tip of the iceberg, because there are going to be records in the collection that don't have, which we don't have as we haven't given an item title to, because all we've done is just described the body of records as an aggregate, as a series is what we call them. So for instance, we might have records that are, produced by the Department of Premier and Cabinet, which was a very broad-ranging agency in government, and that they would have, for instance, correspondence records, so records going into that department from all over Victoria. And because we haven't itemised each of the letters that were received, you will not, that 3,700 does not include any of those, for instance, or any of those letters that were received from, say, a private individual in Cranbourne writing a letter to the Department of Premier and Cabinet for whatever reason. So to show you how to, a bit about it, how to navigate, I'm just going to select this first result, which is an agency. So we know that it's Clyde North School, primary school number 118. And that takes us to the page for that agency, and you can read about what the agency is. In this occasion, it doesn't really tell us much more than the title. If you shift the tabs, you can also look at what series, what bodies of records that particular school created are with us. And as you can see, there's only one listed, it's school records. It's a very general sort of title, tells you what date ranges they go through. The VPRS number, that's what we call the Victorian Public Records Series number, 9333. And if you click through to that, you can then see a breakdown of what's in that series. And as you can see here, it's things like pupils register, inspectors report book, school newsletters, school history. And if you click on those navigation arrows at the bottom, you can go through the 3 pages of contents in that particular record series. I'm just going to go back now and have a look at another one of the results in that initial search we did. This is the map from the Historic Plan Collection, which is a really good resource for doing local history and finding out all sorts of details about how a particular area developed in a visual way, whether it be, who owned a particular parcel of land at the time that it was alienated from the Crown. This collection does not have transfer of ownership. It's really about, for this kind of map, it's about the first owner, the person who acquired the land from the government. Subsequent ownership is a matter that you would have to trace through the titles office. This can give you an idea of how the parcels of land were divided up at a particular time in this part of Cranbourne. So a couple of other just general points about the result, doing this kind of catalogue search, which is very general. Along the side here, there's all these navigation filters that you can apply, whether it is just to see agencies, so government departments that have the word Cranbourne in them, for instance, the courts, the road district, shire, city, so local government records. Then it's renaming as a city of Berwick between 73 and 94. Then its current, its current identity as Cardinia. So each of those has its own agency listing. If you wanted to go click through, you could see what records that particular body had. Applications for sustenance, which is really interesting sort of thing back in the Depression era, people applying for the first, it was really, I guess, the first form of welfare, and rate cards, which are a good way of doing property searching and searching who lived in particular locations. So another way that you can it's another way you can use the filters is to just see what's online. That's a bit of a surprise because it said that there are 357. I don't know why it did that. Maybe it got confused because I was going backwards and forwards.
Seb, maybe it's because you're not logged in.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's all right.
No. I think the browsing backwards and forwards.
Yeah, it was just getting
confuses the cache. Yeah. So as you can see, there's quite a few records that you can just look at online, including some school records, the inspector's report book, which we sort of glimpsed earlier when we looked at the records listed under Clyde North School, the map, and then a bunch of photos. And you can keep going through that and seeing what else turns up. And yeah, I've already talked about how records in series. So series can give you an idea of how many different bodies of records. Yeah, it's done it again. Go back to do another search and just see what series there are. And as you can see, they're a bit of a mix. There's even something there from Springvale City for some reason, probably because the library service was somehow involved with Cranbourne. Cranbourne Courts, all things we've sort of touched upon in a different context. Interestingly, there's something from the Royal Botanic Gardens as well, which might be, that might be because of the campus of the gardens that's out there near Cranbourne, right? Yeah, so that might be why that's in that particular, that's turned up.
That's exactly right, Sebastian. We used to be Dandenong Valley Regional Library Service, which was Dandenong, Springvale, Cranbourne, Berwick and Pakenham. And right. We've got the Australian Botanical Garden at Cranbourne. Yeah,
so there you go. So that's a kind of a general introduction to the catalogue. It's pretty hit and miss. It's worth a try if you've got a search term that you want to look up. But what Lexi's going to talk about now is some more targeted forms of searching that rather than wading through 3,700 hits for Cranbourne, or trying to narrow them down using the filters that I've used, it can be a much more effective way of getting to something very particular. So I'll hand over to her now. I'll stop sharing my screen. Over to you, Lexi.
All right, I'm unmuted. So I'm just going to share my screen so that I can do some, I can show you guys the best way to do some navigating. And look, I know that often, like with what Sebastian just took you guys through with the catalogue, it can be quite daunting. And we understand that. So we've got some really great topic pages. And so this is, and I'm going to direct you to those and I'll show you how to do some little searches within those. So as you can see here, you can see the, sorry, I don't actually open something else up. So this is our general homepage. And if in the Explore the Collection, you can click on Explore the Collection. And then if we scroll down a bit, we've got things like Where to Start, which is a more general, of like a very general sort of approach. And then we've got Explore Archives by Topic. And that's where I'm going to take you in today, because this is basically, it's a collection of our most popular series and the topics of that researchers are looking to access. We've got things like will and probates. You've got a more collective one, which is family history. So that's going to be a combination of a number of different kinds of records. So things like researching your house, land and property, passenger records, cemeteries, health and welfare, inquests, lots of different things. And then we've got the more like the individual topic groups. So passenger records and immigration, researching your house, inquests. And then here it goes other topics A to Z, and it takes you through all sorts of different record topics and record groups that might be of interest. So today I just thought I would start with a will and probate search. Basically, so like it says on the website, around 95% of our probates administered from January 2017 onward are still with the Supreme Court. And so often, I know often sometimes researchers, if nothing comes up on our database, we will always direct you to go to the Supreme Court, because it obviously just means that it hasn't been transferred. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And basically we've got this great little search engine here embedded in the page, so that you don't have to necessarily go through the catalogue if you don't want. And you can search for a family given name, a family name given name, do something far broader like residence and location or someone's occupation. We do often recommend, similar to what Sebastian had mentioned, like it's always better casting a wider net here, because this is even very much the case for even something that's more specific, like a will and probate file, because even though you might just use somebody's surname, so we'll say Jones for the family name, and we'll just say, the year of death, 1901. This is just a stab in the dark. But sometimes sometimes you just really need to comb through and maybe just start with the person's surname, and you might get many hits. So here's an example of Jones's, who and it's got here that I've got the option of 1,363 open records. We can see here that the date range, I put to 1901, so it was showing up to that. We'll also see here around the location, we can see that there's this many in North Melbourne, and then there's this many that have been digitised. And because they're older, they will be digitised. Obviously, the newer ones not. And so just as an example, I'm just going to click on this, and it's here. This is where you would go if you were wanting to select the record. So you're like, yes, I'm sure. It says here that it's on open access and it's physical. So that means that it hasn't been digitized. And to order, you would just go select record, and you go continue to selections. And you're going to say confirm at North Melbourne, or alternatively, you'll say send the original isn't an option for you guys. That's just on there because sometimes different government agencies are recalling their own records. So that's when it happen, or if a staff member was looking to access something. But you can also opt for ordering a digital copy or a paper copy. And these requests will pop up where you can like pop the details in, and you will be provided with a quote. So that's if you're not able to make it into the reading room. Now I'm going to go back. So another kind of record that I thought might be interesting is divorce files and case books. And so for this series, we we've got the, we hold the records from 1861 to 1946, and it's in series 5335, 552 and 283. So this, the VPRS numbers that you one of these up, these indexes. And you can see here, this is a good example of a digitized record. So I'm going to make it nice and big so that you guys can see. And you can see that you can actually zoom. And this is what it looks like. It's what we have in our repository. And so if we take this through, we can see as an example, let's see if I can interpret any of the names. This one looks like Beryl Anderson. And you can see the reference number is 218. And we can see here that it's William John. I'm not sure what that surname, what his other middle name is. That's what I was thinking, Ferguson. Yeah, so William John Ferguson Anderson. And we can see up here that he is the respondent. So Beryl was the petitioner. And this is for 1943. So if we take a look back, we can see that their reference number is 218. So we would note that down. And if we go back, we've got the case number, which was 218, and it was from 1943. We can go search. And we'll see here that this is the case number that's come up. And so we can also see here that it says it's open and it's physical. So that means that this has not been digitized. We would select the record. And then go continue to selections. And then we would be given the ability to continue in ordering that to view or ordering a copy. So the next one I thought is a good example is the passenger records, and we'll open this up, and you can see these are actually, our passenger records are a great example, another great example of records that have been digitized. So there's no need for you to come into the reading room if you wanted to take a look at these, because it's going to be, it's the digital copy is is to the same quality as like the divorce index that you just saw. So if we just do, we can just play around and we can do a family name. I remember when I was helping, I used to work in the reading room helping researchers, and we would always say again that it was best to have as, you know, cast as wide a net as possible. Sometimes, a lot of the times, particularly with passenger lists, people's names are spelled incorrectly because maybe it was the person on the boat misheard them, or there was a spelling mistake. So it's great, yeah, to just try and be broad. And if you know something like the ship or the date, then it's great. Otherwise, you can just try with names. I'll just try Jones again as an example. We can see here there's Elizabeth Jones, age 38, and she arrived in March of 1853. It's also giving us the reference, so it's book number 10 and page 68. And if we click on the ship name, which was the British Empire, it's actually going to bring up a digitized version, so you can see the physical record and you'll be able to take a look at her name on the ledger. This will be another one where we zoom in and so you can see the names are there. They're calling. So that was their occupation. Whereabouts they'd come from in England and Wales, native country. Denomination, education, whether you're married, age of adults, what your circumstances are, children, and yeah, it's just very interesting. Wages, things like that. So each person will have a varying degrees of information recorded, and sometimes people, you know, it can be a bit disappointing because it might just be a like a name and not too much else. But it's still a great place to start. Just another one that I thought I will show you also, which is a popular one, is researching your house. And yes, this is you know, very much a broader in terms of this topic page gives you access to all different kinds of records. So certificates of title, City of Melbourne building plans, records, Melbourne and Metropolitan Board of Works plans, and then things like valuation registers. So this is also like, yeah, a great way to start. And, you know, you can jump in, for instance, for the certificates of title, and here we give you the option of, yeah, we've got access to the indexes, and then you can browse the listings for the appropriate application number. So it's just, I really do recommend, if you're looking to get started with your research, that you do access the records via like the Explore Archives by Topic. The final one that I'm just going to quickly show you is also our, we've got a, also in this section in Explore the Collection, we've got our online collections, and this is a really great representation of our digitized records. And so basically you can jump in and there's all these different kinds of record groups, and you can see, so in particular with things like courts and justice, you can see that we've got a lot of the Kelly Historical Collection record digitized online. So you can actually view that, and it's the police notebooks, the police reports, things like that. We've got, yeah, records of burials, things like old register of male and female prisoners. I'll just open this up as an example. So if it's a name or prisoner number, I'll just put Jones in again because I know it will come up with something. We can have a look here, and it's Lawrence Harry Raymond Jones. And we can actually see the clear scan of his prison record with the photos. And you can see his, the charges, what the punishments were, the fines, and offences and the sentencing. And so, yeah, these can be sort of real treasure troves as well, and just interesting and worth a look, I think. And I'm going to end it there, and Sebastian and I will open it up. Oh, sorry, I'm also going, the last thing I'm going to tell you guys, sorry, before I do that, is just about, it's about viewing and ordering records in the reading room. And basically, you can still, for a long time because of COVID, you can still make appointments, but now due to restrictions relaxing and things like that, you actually no longer have to be vaccinated to be able to enter our reading room, and you don't have to make an appointment either. Oh. So yeah, it's just changed, Sebastian, it just changed very, very, like in the last few days.
Yeah, I thought maybe I was giving out of date information considering that all changed. So no, apologies, everyone.
No, although something, even though you don't have to make an appointment, it's probably something that I would recommend, because you want to make sure that when you do come into the reading room that you've got everything already pre-ordered. You want to know that you can tell from your account that it's actually in the reading room ready for you to access it, because it does happen quite frequently where researchers will come in and they think that they've ordered something, and then unfortunately it hasn't been there for them, and we need time to go and do to pick the records and to bring them up. So it can be disappointing. But basically, we're also open one Saturday a month for 3 or 4 hours. So it's the first and last Saturday of every month, just for a few hours. So if you can't make it in during the week and you were interested in that, then that's something to keep in mind. And basically, you can have I think, Sebastian, how many records can you have on order at a time? We do have to limit these things because it's our staff who are servicing all of this, and so you do have order limits and things like that, but it's all very, very viewable on your account. You just need to register. All you need to register is your name and an email address, and then you get to pick your own password. So it's pretty straightforward, and I would also direct you to just have a look at the Contact Us page, which is accessible just from the top of the homepage here, because this is where it answers every question you could really possibly have about, yeah, general inquiries and all of that sort of stuff, and where to find us.
Just going to answer your question. Public users can order up to 8 records per delivery. Okay. So that's like a daily cycle, I guess. Yeah. But you can accumulate up to 24.
Yes.
In total. So I guess that what that means is if you do it, say 4 days in advance, you'd get 8, 8, 8, 8, and then on the 4th day, you would have 24 waiting for you. So if you wanted to have the full 24, you kind of have to plan a bit ahead. Otherwise, if you're doing it for say tomorrow or the next day, it's going to be a lesser amount that you can have ready and waiting for you.